Right.
We're live.
I call to order the Historic Preservation Commission regular meeting for Monday, November 4th. Roll call.
James Hensley,
Here.
Aaron Brown,
Here.
Patrick Kerr,
Here.
Valerie Duncan,
Here.
Adam Ropp,
Present.
Lynn Bilodeau,
Here.
and Joe Chappell.
Present.
And James Long absent. All right.
All right. Any public comments?
Carol Herzl, 3119 Cedar Ridge Court. If I can read my writing. And James Hensley was nice enough to give me these two things. Is that what was approved? Does that look like
Yep.
what was
Yeah.
approved? Okay. So, and first of all, is there a materials list? Did a materials list go with these when you approved these? I'm reading what was required to get a certificate of appropriateness. Elevation on all sides, samples of materials, including paint chips.
Just to remind the commission, this is public comment, so it's not an agenda item where we can go back and forth.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then maybe I can get them somehow. So there's no materials list. Brick, stone. Materials list, like I know that Lap and Gap is 3 times more expensive than Smart Board. So there's no restriction of Smart Board rather than Lap and Gap. Looks like the porch has Trex. Looks like part of the roof has metal. I don't know what the sidewalk is. Here it says concept, so we still don't have a plan. We have a concept. And it said, up here it says square footage 1,200. Over here it says 1,466. There is no height, and this says higher pitch. So isn't it still all over the map what we expect to
I
be built?
can tell you, if you come to our office, I can give you the full set of building plans.
Okay. Materials list?
Yeah, I mean, it's the full set of building construction plans,
Okay.
because a building permit has been submitted.
Oh, I know that,
Okay.
but I was just looking at, and then it says no changes shall be made to the approved work after the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness, but it's not, it's definitely set in stone what you approved,
Yes, it was
The
based on that
blueprints.
drawing.
the blueprints, not this, that says concept, it's based on blueprint. Anyway, I can go to your office, because I didn't think that everything had been done. And also, I was looking at, by the way, December 4th, SHPO's having a workshop. If anybody wants to go and learn more about historic preservation, they do it for free every 6 months. Jeff and I are going to go. He wants to go hear about tax credits, and I want to go to hear about guidelines for certificate of appropriateness. But also, I was talking to a friend of mine who's kind of an expert, and she said, well, she's on the Oklahoma City Preservation Board, and she said no changes can be made after the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness. If it's not real specific, then does anybody care if it doesn't go as planned?
I can get with you and address your
Okay.
questions and
Okay.
issues.
Okay, and if anybody wants to go to the preservation, I know one other thing. It did say, under the 4 ways for infill on Secretary, the guidelines from Secretary of the Interior, it said, like, put your building, if you tear down a 700 square foot building, put your new building in the same footprint. So you all allowed one twice as big. So I just had some, my house is next door to that, so I'm concerned about what gets built. So, thank you.
All right. Approval of previous minutes from the regular meeting on October 7th, 2019 meeting.
Move to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Yep.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All right. All right, item number 4 is H,
I'm going to do roll call.
oh, sorry.
It's okay.
We still got to vote.
Yeah. Adam Ropp?
Here.
No.
Yeah, wrong answer. No.
Yes
That a
or
yes
or no?
Yes.
Yes, all right. Lynn Bilodeau?
I'm going to abstain only because I missed the first 2 agenda items.
Okay.
But I don't see any problem with the 3 and 4.
Joe Chappell
Yes.
and Patrick Kerr?
Yeah.
Okay. That's right. That should do, because Aaron and Valerie were not here. So, okay, perfect.
All right. Item number 4 is HPC application 19-026, discussion and potential action on a request for a certificate of appropriateness for the replacement of windows in a building located at 402 South Division. Staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The applicant, I don't believe, is going to be here tonight. He couldn't make it in that. I didn't think it was going to be too much of an issue, so I told him not to worry about it. But this is the building that's over there right on the corner of Division and, geez, now I got my map all mixed up on Springer, I think. Springer? Anyway, it's a more modern building. It's, I think, built in the 50s or so, so it's a general resource. They got a number of windows that are bad, and so they're wanting to replace all the windows. The windows were provided in your packet. Given what was there and also what they're going to put in, it didn't appear that there was going to be much issue, because again, it's a general resource, so it's not one of the older buildings within our district in that, so staff felt it was appropriate and would recommend the certificate of appropriateness be approved.
All right. I guess we don't have a applicant. Any comments from the commissioners?
Is that the building across from Simone's?
Yeah, kind of catty corner across there.
Caddy corner?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It used to be, I believe, Cleaners, Dean's Cleaners or something, somebody said.
It's more cat-a-corner from the liquor store.
Right.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All right. Roll call, James Hensley,
Yes.
Aaron Brown,
Yes.
Patrick Kerr,
Yes.
Valerie Duncan,
Yes.
Adam Ropp,
Yes.
Lynn Bilodeau,
Yes.
and Joe Chappell.
Yes.
All right, unanimous.
All right. Discussion and potential action on select final design elements of the Mineral Wells 2018 Land and Water Conservation Fund grant project that was approved unanimously by the Historic Preservation Commission on January 7th, 2019 by a 6-0 vote. At the January 7th, 2019 Historic Planning Commission expressed interest in participating in the exact placement of the 4 new pavilions, color palette of the new playground equipment, final quantity of the hard surface parking, and the options on parking, striping, paint colors, potentially white or gray instead of yellow.
Mr. Chair, if I could add just before we move forward. I just wanted to state that this was requested by the chairman to be on there, but the only thing I wanted to add is we are currently basically amending or still coming to a final plan. In going through the budgetary process with the grant and the grant money, there appeared that there was a couple items that were not accounted for between the engineer and the grant itself, so we're going to have to look at maybe paring down some of the improvements, or again, looking at different areas to make sure we could have this project move forward. So at this point, we don't have a plan that is really ready to come to the commission for for your review and input. Like I said, the chairman had asked for it to be on, so obviously it's on the agenda, and you guys could discuss as you feel appropriate. I just, again, wanted to indicate that we still are working on a plan that will come back to the Historic Preservation Commission before it is finalized. Thank you.
All right.
I printed off some of the pictures. Joe has a handful, and there's a handful, just pictures of the park throughout the years.
We can pass these around. First of all, and I don't know if you all recall, but I was opposed to this application for grant when I saw the first design. Rebecca was our planning commissioner at the time, and she assured me that the plan was conceptual, that the plan was only being used to get the grant. In fact, the presentation to us at the time, in fact, the one that we've been given tonight regards to proposed paved area, proposed pavilion, proposed playground, proposed all over the map. In addition, in the rest of the handout at that meeting, we were shown some conceptual drawings of, not drawings, but photographs of gazebos, conceptual, all listed as conceptual. And it has since come to my understanding that no one applies for a grant with a final plan. And I, for one, I don't know about the rest of the commission, would not have voted to approve a plan that I thought was final. We made several requests that night, I do recall that, concerns,
Old pictures.
but I don't think we spent more than 25 or 30 minutes discussing it. We've actually spent more time on the color scheme of the donut shop downtown than we have spent talking about what I think is going to be HP's most important project, probably in the rest of my lifetime. I have been told several times by staff that we approved the plan. Well, I would like to, I've highlighted a couple of things in our historic preservation ordinance, and about 8 paragraphs, and I'd like to share them with the commission now. The first being what our powers and duties of the commission are. We are to regulate new construction within a historic district and exterior alterations to landmarks, landmark sites, and properties within defined historic districts in the manner described herein. We are to cooperate with federal, state, county, and local governments in the pursuit of objectives of historic preservation, and to work with city departments on projects or departmental plans that have the potential to impact historic resources. We are to retain consultants and conduct additional studies as deemed desirable or necessary by the commission, except that any expenditure of city funds or of any funds administered by the city of Guthrie shall be subject to the prior approval of the city council. I will bring up why I thought that was important later. It's only about 3 or 4 more paragraphs, maybe 5. In the following instances, a certificate of appropriateness from the commission shall be required before the commencement of work upon any landmark, landmark site, or property within a historic district. Whenever such work includes the restoration, rehabilitation, alteration, construction, reconstruction, excavation, relocation, or demolition to the exterior of any resource that is listed as a landmark or a landmark site or is located within a historic district, except when such work satisfies all the requirements for ordinary maintenance. All other applications for certificates of appropriateness shall be accompanied by the following documents when relevant. City staff and/or the commission will determine which documents are relevant to the application in question. and elevation of all sides of the existing or proposed improvements, I think Carol was talking about this, which can be seen from a street or alley to scale, with all materials, textures, and colors to be used identified as shown. All other elements shall be shown, including light standards and fixtures, screens for mechanical equipment or trash meters, and meter boxes and such other details as may exist on the improvement. Drawings or photographs of non-stationary structures, amenities, furniture, or equipment to be placed upon parcels of public or private land within the district or on a landmark site, including but not limited to fences, lighting standards, planters, benches, vending machines, copies of photographs, which we have passed out here, or historical records, if available, which pertain to the existing resource. Upon review of the application, the Commission shall determine whether the proposed work is of a nature that will adversely affect any historic or architectural resource, and whether such work is appropriate and consistent with the spirit and intent of this ordinances. The Commission shall be guided by the following criteria in determining approval or denial of certificates of appropriateness: the purpose and intent of this ordinance, the degree to which the proposed work may destroy or alter all or part of the resource, and the degree to which the proposed work would serve to isolate the resource from its historical or architectural surrounding, or would introduce visual elements that are out of character with the resource and its setting, or that adversely affect the physical integrity of the resource. The compatibility of the building materials with aesthetic and structural appearance of the resource, including but not limited to the consideration of brick, stone, concrete, shingle, wood, or stucco. The compatibility of the proposed design to the significant characteristics of the resource, but including but not limited to a consideration of harmony of materials, details, height, mass, proportion, rhythm, scale, setback, shape, and street accessories, and workmanship. And then last but not least, no change shall be made to the approved work after issuance of a certificate of appropriateness without resubmittal and approval thereof in the same manner as provided above. I need a drink of water.
Mr. Chair, if I could just add real quick a comment.
Yes.
I don't disagree with you. I just wanted to let you know from the staff's perspective, given recent scrutiny of the ordinance and a lot of that's happening at the staff level, I'm going to be putting basically forth where the typical application you've seen from the average person will no longer be accepted. It's going to be a checklist, and every item that you mentioned will have to be addressed in some manner. Otherwise, that application will not be accepted and will not come to the HPC until all of that information is provided. That way, we have a across the board and everybody gets treated kind of fairly type of situation in that. But I just want you to know that I've taken, like I said, into consideration a lot of the scrutiny that's been done. I think it's most important that we, even at the staff level, will be very critical of anything that wasn't in the 1890 to 1910 timeframe in terms of being rehabbed, built, or otherwise in that. So anyway, I just wanted to add that you'll see a lot difference coming to the commission in terms of applications. I know the general public is not going to like it, but it's something we'll have to deal with. So thank you.
Well, I guess my point is that we last spoke of this park on January 7th. And we have not seen photos of gazebos. We have not seen photos of the parking elements. We haven't seen benches. We basically have not seen, like I said, we haven't seen anything. So.
Oh, no, I don't disagree. And like I said at the beginning, we're still working on that. We had a couple, lack of better terms, road bumps that have come up with the budget part of it. And so some of the elements that we had put in there that would have come to you for your review now may be taken out or changed or whatever. So at this point, it didn't make sense to bring something that was going to change to you guys to look at. So that's why we haven't brought anything forth at this point, because there's going to be some changes, again, based on some of the financial aspects of the project.
Another thought, and this is just food for thought from the other commissioners. This grant comes due, the grant, we have to have this project completed by May of 2022. What I would like to see the park done right and not right now. There doesn't seem to be a big hurry here. My suggestion would be that, to ask City Council to see about getting a firm that specializes in historic park preservation, even if we would have to cut back on some of the amenities to make sure that this most historic park's integrity is preserved. I don't know that everybody knows that the Mineral Wells Park was formerly called Island Park. I don't know that, when you first pull into the park, there's a monument off to the right shaped in the state of Oklahoma. It calls this park Oklahoma's most historic park. It was the site of the celebration after statehood was announced at the Carnegie Library. The trees are a historic resource. There was concern about the number. Of course, there was another plan that I had requested that the commissioners see. And I believe this plan was presented to the city council in August, perhaps? I don't know, but I know that it was a plan that we never saw. And this has more parking in this part of the park than the original one did. So that's a concern. This is a very small park. One of the most beautiful things about this park is when you pull into it and you go down that lane of all those covered trees to the right. And my concern is that we may be paving paradise and put up a parking lot kind of thing. I just think that we need to be more involved. And according to ordinance, I think that's pretty clear. And I will, history's our brand. This is Guthrie's most historic park. I'm all for a plan moving forward, but I think that this park deserves a firm. I just went to a park in Ardmore. It's called the Ardmore Depot, which a architecture firm is working on. I'd rather have 2 brilliant gazebos than 5 average ones.
Dan, is there a committee that's putting this together? I mean, who's building this
Myers.
park? Is it all Myers, or is there city staff involved?
No, yeah,
Or
Tenny, our Public Works Director, Leroy, our City Manager, and Bill Myers from Myers Engineering. As was mentioned, Rebecca was part of it previously, but obviously she's not here anymore. And I haven't been a strong part of it, mainly for that reason, because obviously I wasn't here during a lot of the process, or even when it initially even came to the commission. So, but it's primarily been the City Manager, Public Works Director, and our engineer.
So there hasn't been an architect or a consultant or anything of that sort. Thoughts?
I agree with you. I wish we'd have somebody with more of a background in park design look at it than Myers Engineering.
Would it not be appropriate to have a member of this commission sit on that committee who is working to put this plan together? To work along with city staff and the engineering firm?
I think that it would make sense if we had someone on this committee that was very well versed on HP. I don't know, Aaron, I think would be a good person for that that's very familiar with
Or Joe.
historic preservation.
I think you need
And-
at least
or-
2 people for backup.
Well, I think that you can get too many people in a room, and then you've got, no one's going to agree. But I think that if you had someone with historic preservation that could be that sounding board, or someone, and if not on this board, if we did have an architect that was very well versed in historic parks, I think that would make a lot of sense than just having our city manager, our public works, and an
I mean, the-
engineer.
you
So.
know, The goal of this project is stated right here
Sure.
on this plan. And it is to maintain the historic nature of Mineral Wells Park. And like I said, the splash pads and playgrounds, I'm on board with that. Even though they aren't historical by nature, I'm still on board with that. But I think it's very important what they look like, what visual impact they have. We talked about.
Partially.
Anyway, I don't want to do all the talking.
I think it's appropriate to ask that at least one person from this commission is represented on that committee who is working on this plan. That way, the HP Commission has a voice and can address the historic preservation concerns about this.
I think partly, we're getting ready to spend $900,000 on this project, right? I think there would be some money in there to have someone that has a track record in a park that's this special, that has this kind of history in our state. Well, we can recommend this to city council, they can shoot us down.
Well, and I think too, if Dan's told us that the budget has changed and they're going to have to cut some things, then we could probably hear from, I mean, if someone with an HP background could review what the plan looks like and say, you know what, if you're going to cut out all these sidewalks, because that's
The
unnecessary.
sidewalks are gone now.
So-
We never saw that plan. That's my understanding, that they have been removed because of the budget.
Okay.
But the plan presented to council had the sidewalk on them.
So I do agree. I think it would be beneficial to have someone with historic preservation background on that committee to help provide some input on what this should look like to ensure that it does maintain some historical integrity, so that then it can come before this board for its final say, and then that person actually is then able to speak to the board and explain why things are the way they are in the final plan.
And the possibility would exist, and I read this paragraph, to retain consultants and conduct additional studies as deemed desirable or necessary by the commission. Except that if we hired someone, city council would have to know. There might be
Well-
someone with this kind of experience that would agree to be a consultant that's not on our
Yeah,
board.
the city council would have to know because they'd have to find someone
Yeah.
to pay for it.
Yeah, unless we found a consultant that was willing. to,
Oh, that's true.
And I can think of a couple that have Guthrie connection.
I think you need a registered
What-
landscape architect.
I think
well,
Joe
that's
Coffin
what I'm
is
talking about.
is a great, resource. I mean, I don't know.
And Joe Coffin would probably be willing to serve in that capacity, but it would be something we'd have to reach out for.
I still think that a voice from this commission.
I
needs
think a
to be
voice
heard
from
as
this
well.
commission and a consultant that has some background in,
Well, and Joe has served on this board in the past, too. I'm pretty sure he has.
I know he's on
Joe-
planning, but I don't know if he was on HP.
I could be mistaken, but I thought he had in the past.
I think so.
So I think that he would be, along with another, a member that's currently on the board, along with someone like Joe Coffin, if he's willing, would be a phenomenal addition to this committee or what have you, to ensure that we get an amazing result. I mean, I don't know how many of you know Joe Coffin and what he's designed and what he's put out, but he is phenomenal in what he does. So if we could get him, that would definitely be,
Well, he
feather in
helped
our hat.
design, Honor Park as well, as I remember, before the monuments went in. I could agree to that, too. Any thoughts, Commissioners?
I just agree with Mr. Chappell. A person from here, because that way it's more connected personally with the town, even though I know Mr. Coffin is as well, but depending on who we get on the outside, so you'd have two. And it's just good to hear, though, right, that they have to they're going to come to us for approval, though, before something's done, right? Like, I think I've heard that twice, so, is that correct?
Well, and there is
Yeah.
and there is a concern because of the fact that a plan that we had not seen was given to council. So,
They gave it to them, they voted on it?
No,
I don't think it was a vote, it was just a.
it was an
report,
update.
An update.
So Dan, I don't know what staff's position is on that, but I don't know that it would hurt to go
Yeah,
to
I'll-
just have a discussion about what that would look like, because I think, I mean, it may even save time in the long run if you have someone on this staff and then you have someone like Joe, you know, the likelihood of it then coming before this group and being approved is probably a lot more likely than if you just don't include them in,
Yeah, 'cause-
especially in something that is a city project. If it was a private project, I understand not having this board involved. But since it is a city project, it would make sense to
it's a-
involve our city resources,
And
such
it's
as the
a
HB
historic
board.
district in and to itself.
It is.
It's worth doing right.
I agree. I don't disagree with you at all.
So, moving forward, this is uncharted territory. Do we make a motion to try to get a consultant and have a board member serve on the committee? Initially, I requested this to be a workshop, since we had not had one on it, but this is serving.
Yeah, I mean,
This is serving as a workshop.
yeah, I mean, at this point, if you want, I mean, obviously, the information that, you guys have talked about and the discussion with that, I am going to relay to the current, if you want to say, project managers of the park, and we can, go from there. I mean, I don't know,
And while I agree with everything Joe said, I don't know that we need a formal motion and vote on whether to request council put somebody from this commission on their committee that's working on it.
Perhaps we should,
Well, I don't know, we don't need their approval unless
I
there's a
understand.
monetary expenditure, right?
I mean, and we can request that, like you said, they can shoot us down.
I think there should be a formal motion and vote as to whether that is our recommendation. If that is the recommendation of the historic,
Okay.
of this commission, then I think a motion to that is warranted.
Appropriate.
Let me read that. I don't think that we have to. We have the right to retain consultants and conduct additional studies as deemed desirable or necessary by the commission, except that any expenditure of city funds or any funds administered by the city council shall be subject to the prior approval of the city council. Am I reading that wrong, lawyer?
But I think we all need to vote of whether we agree or not to get a consultant.
I agree. I think
Okay.
Valerie is right, that I think
Okay.
that to express the wishes of the board,
Yeah.
that you guys should vote and say you either unanimously or what have you.
And see if Joe Coffin's willing.
Yeah, I mean, if he would.
Joe Kaufman. What are his credentials?
He is
my
what you
God.
said.
He's a landscape
He
architect.
is a landscape architect.
Licensed with
and
the state of
I
designer.
have no
Oklahoma?
idea.
Yes.
Yes, he is, and he is phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, would the first step then be a motion just to request that city council put a member of this commission on that committee?
Well, I don't think the city council even formed that committee. I
No,
think
it's not,
Okay.
yeah,
So-
it's been worked at, like any of the
It's been an
grants or
in-house
projects,
transaction.
Right, it's been worked at the staff level. It's no different than any other grant we've had or any other project we've had. And then at such time that the things are worked at the staff level, it goes to the appropriate review bodies, whether it be the HPC or city council or both, or whatever the case may be.
But I think much like the Mumford money, if I dare mention it, I mean, we've had a committee of every single citizen in this community on that board or that group at one time or another in the past 5 years. So I wouldn't see this as anything different. I think that we should have some outside input other than just in-house on what this should look like.
And like I said, this project doesn't have to be done until May of 2022. So,
Okay, so our motion should be that the committee will recommend that someone of our choosing, whether it be on this committee or someone outside, work,
Or
or
both.
both, work with city staff in discussing
In planning the park
planning the park.
improvements.
Can we do it now?
How was that worded? Was that worded all right?
Yeah.
Pretty close.
It was pretty close.
Well, it wasn't in the form of a motion, but
I make that motion, what I just said.
I second.
Okay.
I'm not clear what your motion is.
yeah.
From what, if I can summarize, I'm sorry, if I summarize, basically to have one HPC member be part of the, basically, project from here on out.
As well as making a suggestion in addition to that, there is,
Well, it's.
If possible.
if possible, another person outside the committee as well. So two.
So if we can get someone to volunteer for
Correct.
free.
but I think.
Does that satisfy?
I'm not,
You're not? Why?
What do you like about it?
because we need a licensed landscape architect to design this, not an engineer and a city manager.
I
I mean, I
concur.
have no problem with somebody from this committee participating in it, but we're not designers.
Right, so we'll
And
see
we're
if we,
not qualified.
so we'll see if we can find one.
Right.
So don't we
Neither
go
is
to
mine.
the,
So we'll see if we can find one. Talk to the mic, gosh. You and I both were sitting back.
I'd like the motion to include that we either require or request a licensed landscaper.
Sure.
Okay, so
Unless
that
we-
motion was
unless we can
amended.
Get them free.
Well, if we're going to request one, then obviously, then city council would have to approve for those funds to be available unless we can get something for free.
Right.
I mean, this council, or this group can't spend money, right, without the
Right.
approval of city
Right.
council. So if you can get someone like Joe Coffin, who is a licensed landscape architect, by all means, that would be,
But being that it's a
card.
city/government, or I guess state-funded project, you can't just choose somebody. There's a procurement process you have to go through to meet all the applicable laws. So basically, you're looking to do a request for qualifications. Because you can't just pick somebody you want.
right?
Yeah.
And the only reason I mentioned Joe was as a consultant, because I thought with his Guthrie background, he might be willing.
No, right, but that
he
goes
might be
back
willing
to,
do this.
that goes back to what Mr. Kerr had said, is through that process, he would ensure that they would have minimum qualifications.
And as far as designers or park architects, I'm sure that a list of those names could be gotten from SHPO or the Department of Parks and.
Well, if we had to hire someone, we'd have to put out an RFQ. I don't know what that process, I don't know how long that takes, right? And I don't even know.
Yeah, usually it just goes to whatever the local or the city has established for their rules in terms of kind of a procurement process. Some it's 30 days, some it's 60 days. It all on what is the typical, what's done locally. Most cases, generally, it's a 30-day for requests for qualifications. And then at that point, you usually have 4 or 5, a committee of 4 or 5 that will review the proposals, and the highest scoring proposal will then be, you would go into basically negotiations with for a actual contract and the financials of it. But it would be based on qualifications first.
And I have no idea who put this together with Myers Engineering. I mean, did they have an architect on staff that put this
Yeah,
together?
honestly, I can't tell you either, because that was what was part of the grant application and was presented to you guys. I think obviously Myers did it, but I don't know the qualifications of their staff that did it. I think it's just them as engineers did it, I assume.
Okay, do we want to try making the motion
Well,
again?
I'm thinking as the first step, we may want to backtrack that motion, and I still think just as a first step, if Aaron would withdraw that motion that includes both a member of this commission working with the committee and hiring somebody else outside. I think we're premature to even talk about us retaining somebody, an outside source. I just think that's premature. I think if we have input from this commission on that committee, then that's always a direction that person can help steer the committee. But I think it's premature for us to get the second one in line when we haven't even met the threshold, and we don't even have somebody on the committee.
So you want to kind of hunt for someone first, maybe have someone in line and then do it?
I don't have anybody in mind. I'm not going to hunt for somebody.
I don't
but-
think it's necessarily premature. I mean, typically, if you start a project like this, you
Typically,
start with the
that's what-
landscape architect.
I mean, that's the way this is done. I mean,
I think the
Cities-
concern here also is that some of this plan was presented to us as almost a done deal, not quite, but almost, that we've been told we already approved it. So I think that is what the sense of urgency is this evening.
Right, yeah.
We don't want a plan that hasn't been well thought out.
we haven't been involved at all, at all. So that's my concern. I mean, I've had conversations with staff and that usually, well, receptive. We've approved the plan.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to withdraw my motion and try again.
Is there also the okay of withdrawing the second?
Yes. Yes, please. With everything I said, please remove it.
Oh, yes.
You're fine, okay.
Okay. Oh, the second, okay. So I'll make a motion, if I can get all this right, that the HP wants somebody from the HP committee to be in discussions with ideas of the park, and we recommend retaining a landscape architect. Did I get it right? Okay.
To me.
Well, like somebody said, you don't start a project until you hire somebody to create a plan for you.
I understand.
Apparently, we've had unqualified people developing plans that we have not either seen until today or approved. The process is incorrect.
Well, and I don't know.
I also have
Dan-
another concern, that our planning director has told us that he's not been involved in this. He's our planning director. Why has he not been involved in this?
Well, I
I'm-
maybe misspoke some, but
But, and having one of us there right now, it still doesn't solve the problem of, we don't have a qualified person to design this. So I think what we ought to recommend is our planning director go to the city council, tell them the concerns of our commission here, that we feel that the process is not correct. We need a professional to be designing this park, and ask them if they have any recommendations or if they agree that we need to hire a professional to begin this process.
And I have one question of Dan first. Dan, do we know for a fact that Myers did not consult with a landscape architect when they did this?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I can't tell you.
So
Yeah.
they may already have somebody involved
Yeah.
in it that we
Yeah.
don't know about.
See, there's too many things that we don't know
understand.
that are going on that shouldn't be.
I think your concerns are still covered with my blanket motion, that with the planning of the park and a member of HP is involved with discussions, and we recommend getting a landscape architect.
Yeah, because we don't want to be in the dark anymore and not just getting an update every once in a while, but being there as it comes to fruition as they're doing this. At least having our eyes and ears inside of what's going on.
Because by making the motion that we recommend a landscape architect, that goes to the city council, and the city council can have a discussion with the city staff about what needs to happen and where it needs to go from there.
I'd say, though, I think, and I'm just speaking from no experience at all, but I think if a landscape architect had looked at this, we wouldn't have an entire section of the park neglected and trying to cram everything underneath the trees. So I think we would have tried to encompass the whole park and make more of it usable or attractive and not just underneath the trees, which is already beautiful. So I don't know that we need that, but I'm not a landscape architect. That's my disclosure.
This looks more like a parking lot than a park.
What's that?
So is the
That's why we
motion,
need a designer.
is the motion I made acceptable? Or
Because we
do,
still need a second.
What was it?
Yeah.
that a member, that a member of
second
H?
it.
Yeah, that a
Yeah,
member.
Her
okay.
revised one?
Yeah, her revised
I
one,
apologize.
yeah. I see, yeah.
So it was that a member of HP is a part of, as the discussions, get later on, but we recommend for a landscape architect that be hired, and that goes to the city council now for them to discuss.
That's our recommendation. Yeah, yeah.
Can you put this in that motion?
I already did, and he already
That's in the
seconded it.
motion.
That was just a rehash, a recap.
No, this motion, can you put that in?
Yeah, that's, Erin's rolling her hands.
Right.
I can't talk without my hands, sorry, guys.
So, we ready for roll call, or is more discussion?
I think we're ready.
Okay. James Hensley,
Yes.
Aaron Brown,
Yes.
Patrick Kerr,
No.
Valerie Duncan,
Yes.
Adam Robb,
Yes.
Lynn Bilodeau,
No,
Joe Chappell.
Yes.
All right, passes 5-2.
All right. Staff comments.
The only thing I have actually was to go on what Carol had said earlier, is the state is having some training in December, in particular December 4th. I will be attending that as well. It's going over a lot of the federal guidelines in terms of historic preservation, as well as what Carol had indicated. There's also another session on the tax rebates and that associated, but I will be going to that training to try to get a little bit better knowledge, also get to talk to other people that are in the historic preservation world, so that's all I have.
Commissioner comments.
I'm not a commissioner, but I'd like to make a comment. I like the fact that there's the training available. I would strongly encourage everyone to take advantage of that can. I know that we have a couple of people here that work in HP, but I think that as an HP commission, the more and more you can learn about what we're supposed to be protecting, I think is very important. I've recently taken some additional HP classes myself for real estate and for continuing ed, and I just continue to think that this board could continue to really help propel our historic district if we continue to learn what we need to be preserving and what we should be focusing on. I think that we have a lot of things going on in downtown that we're not even bothering ourselves with that we should be, if that makes sense. I think we've got a lot of deteriorating buildings that aren't being focused on, and we need to work together as a board or as a commission to ensure that those buildings are being dealt with accordingly. And I would just like to see more historic preservation and less signage policing going on. My 2 cents.
Anyone else? All right, thank you.